Hey guys, this is Brian with The Endless Mission. Today I thought we'd do something a little bit different, which is take a really in-depth look at how our smart condition system works at a pretty advanced level. But to do that, rather than go in and actually build something from scratch like I've done in the prior videos, I thought it'd be cool to look at a game that already works, that's making extensive use of that smart conditions system, play it first to see what's going on, and then go under the hood in the editor to see how the system is being used to make what you see in the gameplay work. So this is a game in our Hall of Celebration right now called Defend Ilvermorrim's Tower, made by Brendan, also known as Legendary Frog, who's our lead designer on the project. And Brendan made this game specifically as a test of the smart condition system and all it could do. And let's take a look. Defend Ilvermorrim's Tower is a tower defense game, hence the name. So let's dive in and play. And as we're doing that, I will play probably badly and narrate a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes, point a few things out. So here we go. So this is a tower defense game based on our RTS assets and using our RTS controls. My objective is to defend that one mage tower you see in the center of the screen, and I control the units in the normal RTS playstyle by selecting them left mouse click and drag, and then right mouse clicking where I want to go, and they've got automated behaviors like attacking the enemy units. You'll notice in the left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner of the screen, there are some UI indicators, and one is counting down. It's at 3, 2, 1, and that's an indicator of a new wave of enemies that is spawning into the game. And next to it is an indicator of a new wave of reinforcements that'll be spawning in just under 5 seconds now. The gameplay logic that Brendan has created involves all of those units spawning in on timers and having to defend the tower. And if this tower health reaches 0 at any point, then we'll lose the game. And if we can manage to get to the end and defeat the last enemy, we'll win. And I won't go all the way through this, but that's the basic idea of how the gameplay works. I'll take it a little longer just to see if I can manage to win, or at least not get completely defeated by these enemies. I've got 12 more seconds until the next wave comes in, you can see on the timer. Oh gosh, who is this guy? He is very big. And now I'm dead. I've got about 38 more seconds, and I don't think I'm going to make it. Oh, there's a couple more guys, but they're probably not going to make it either. And I've got no more units right now. All the enemy units are attacking the tower. It's got like 10% health, and I lost. So now that you've seen the gameplay, let's go into the editor and look at how Brendan is making that work. So for the purposes of this in-depth dive into Brendan's tower defense game, I'm going to assume you're already familiar both with the basic editor controls and also with the basic functioning of the smart condition system. Hopefully you viewed some of the earlier videos on that, because again, this one's a pretty in-depth look. So the thing I'm really interested in here, if I expand my hierarchy, is this group of things Brendan's created called Tower Defense Gameplay. We'll select the first item under here, which is the tower. Brendan has helpfully labeled that Tower Defend Me, and if I use my focus icon, there it is. I can see the main area of the game, including the tower where it takes place. And there's my starting friendly units. If I use mouse and right mouse and WASD to move around, there's some starting enemy units. But that's kind of what I'm looking at, right? If we keep examining the different items in our hierarchy, the next thing we see are a group called enemy waves. And if I expand that, there's wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and a boss wave. Presumably those represent the different waves of enemies that spawn in at different times in the game. I've got reinforcement waves too. There they are. And if I expand any of those, you'll see, oh, there's like a knight that comes in one of the waves of reinforcements and a blue mage. Cool. So the first question you might ask is, well, I see all those waves there. They're clearly represented in the hierarchy, but I don't see them in the game right now other than the first waves. And how does Brendan make them spawn in? That's an excellent question. So the answer lies if we look down a little further in the hierarchy under these wave timers. See wave timer 2, wave timer 3, so on and so forth. If I expand, or pardon me, select one of those, just picking wave 2 because it's the first of the wave timers, you will see a component on it that is a timer smart condition. And if you've looked at the other smart condition videos, you've seen that before and you know what it does. It keeps track of time, and you can configure how much time is going to take place. In this case, we're counting up to 30 seconds. And when you reach 30 seconds, something happens. Normally, and if you looked at the prior videos, you saw this, the things that it can make happen, if I expand this result dropdown, are winning and losing. So you could say if you survive for 30 seconds, you win the game. Or if you don't collect all the fruit in a game within 30 seconds, you'll lose. But the third option here, which we haven't talked about before, is this event, and that's exactly what Brendan is using. This event option exposes one of the very powerful systems behind the Endless mission, which is the ability of different things in the game, when they happen, to create events and to respond to them that other objects or other pieces of code in the game can handle. So what's happening here effectively is Brendan has set up this wave 2 timer smart condition to, at the end of 30 seconds, trigger an event to happen. Actually, several events to happen, because if you look at this on condition met section, this is saying all of the things that will happen when that 30 seconds is expired and this event is triggered. There happen to be 3 items in it, but we could add as many as we want to. And if you've messed around in the editor, you may have seen this little bit of interface before, this like on condition met thing, and then there are a number of things underneath it. This little bit of user interface in the inspector is used to manage something called arrays. If you've done any computer programming, you may have run into that term before. An array is basically a set of, in this case, objects or conditions, and there could be any number of things in it. You can see I could add more by clicking on this plus icon here and delete existing ones by hitting on minus. But Brendan has 3 of them here, and each one of them is important to the gameplay that's happening, again, when 30 seconds have expired and he wants to spawn wave number 2. So what's happening here? The first thing he's doing is represented by this first item under on condition met. And it says, as all of these do, there is some target. The target refers to another object in our game, another object, something we'd find in the hierarchy. And then there is some sort of action that's taking place. And the action that's taking place is it is setting something to active, right? So what's going on there? Well, first of all, let's find what the target is. The target is something called wave 2, and we've seen that before. Up here in the hierarchy, wave 2 represents the group that contains the second set of enemies that spawn in. So far, so good. Then we're setting them active. What are we doing when we do that? Well, let's click on wave 2 in the hierarchy now, and I'll point something out. If you look at the very top of this wave 2 group up by the transform, there's a checkbox here, and currently it's unchecked. I'm going to check it right now. And you'll see it's a little off center on the screen, so let me move over my viewport. There we go. Watch what happens when I check and uncheck that. It's checked right now, unchecked, checked, unchecked, right? That's referring to the group of enemies that is going to spawn in wave 2. And when we first came in here to look at our game, again, that was unchecked. That sort of master checkbox at the top of an object in the inspector effectively enables or disables that object. If an object is disabled with that checkbox unchecked like it is now, you can't see it if you were to go in and play the game. None of the actions, the code that run behind that object would take place. Other things in the game can't bump into it. It's like it's totally disabled. The set active command that Brendan is using and triggering when his 30-second wave timer goes off checks that checkbox. And that's how he's spawning the enemy in. So after 30 seconds, that timer's going to go off, that set active event is going to happen, this checkbox is going to become checked, and as soon as that happens, the enemies will become visible in the game world, and they'll start doing all of the things that they're programmed to do, like attacking the friendly units or attacking the tower. If we go back and look at that Wave 2 timer again, that was the first of our events. There are two more. The second one has a target of the Wave 2 timer, which is the very object we're looking at right now. What is it doing? It's giving it a hide command, and that makes sense too. That's referring to the user interface that you saw in the upper left-hand corner when we were playing the game that actually showed you the countdown timer. Well, the Wave 2 timer, when we reach the 30-second mark, that timer expires. We don't want to see that anymore. So this is basically saying, hey, when your time is up, don't show yourself anymore. Hide yourself. And then the next thing that's happening is the Wave 3 timer is being shown. That's invisible at the start of the game. But after Wave 2 spawns, we want to start counting down to Wave 3. And so we give the show command to the Wave 3 timer, which is the very next item in our hierarchy. That pattern is exactly what Brendan is doing to spawn each one of the waves, both the enemy waves and the reinforcement waves, which he's got timers on down here as well, right? I'll show you one other cool thing about these timers, and I'll use the reinforcement timer as an example. Again, this is this timer smart condition component. Yet again, this one is triggering reinforcements, and it's using the same pattern. It's making the reinforcement groups, setting them to active when the timer threshold is reached. In this case, this first wave of reinforcements comes in after 45 seconds. Brendan has also used built-in features of the smart conditions to customize his user interface. So, for example, because the reinforcement waves are bringing in friendly units, and we want that to feel helpful and positive for our players, he's changed the low timer color, which is ordinarily red, because like time running out is ordinarily a bad thing. He's changed it to blue to reinforce, oh, when that timer is close to going off, you're going to see some enemies come in, some friendly units come in, that's blue, that's great. The other thing that Brendan is doing here, if we scroll down a bit further, is down at the bottom, there's really a powerful level of controlling the smart condition UI. And you've seen us use this before if you've watched prior videos, because we added a bunch of smart conditions to a game in a prior video and had to make it so that their little UI indicators weren't overlapping. So we changed some of the positioning under background settings. And Brendan's done that too. He's moved stuff around and offset it a bit. The other thing we can change here, and that Brendan has changed, is if I expand icon settings, he's changed the default image for the timer counter, which is like a little stopwatch icon, to actually be an icon that represents the blue mage that is part of what spawns in with this reinforcement wave, which is why when we were playing the game, you saw the little picture of the blue mage appear when this unit was getting ready to spawn. You can customize a lot of UI this way, and the color coding here in the editor can be really helpful. So for example, this blue color coding on a field with the dotted line around it tells us that we can drag any item from the content library that is also a blue image type item onto there and replace it. So for example, if we wanted to replace that blue mage icon with a different icon, I could go over to my content library, search under RTS, scroll down, see some red things, some green, there's some blue things. And let's say instead of that displaying the mage, I wanted it to display the archer. I can just grab the archer from my content library, left click and drag right onto that field, and that'll change now. And if we were to play the game, we would see the human archer icon instead. The last thing I'll show you here with Brendan's logic is how is he actually handling win and loss? We saw him using the smart conditions to create events to bring in the waves, but how's he handling win and loss? No differently than we've done it in the prior videos ourselves. Here over in the hierarchy is his lose condition on tower defense. If we click on that, he has a health depleted smart condition on his tower object, right? It's tracking the tower. and causing the game to be lost if the tower's health reaches 0. How is he causing the game to be won? Over here, he's got, in the hierarchy, we've got all enemies defeated win. And he's using another health depleted smart condition, this time on something called boss. I'm guessing that's the enemy boss unit. We didn't get that far when I played it because I wasn't very good. And when that boss is defeated, this time we trigger win. So all of that gameplay logic that Brendan created and you saw when we played it has been done using the different objects in the smart condition system and without Brendan having to write a single line of code to create a game that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different waves of enemies and 2 different waves of reinforcements spawning in. So hopefully that's given you some inspiration for using the smart condition system, and that'll be useful to you if you try using some of those techniques in making a game of your own.